The child's hands fumbled with the spoon, soup spilling onto his lap, until a waitress knelt beside him and gently guided his fingers. She didn't know who was watching, or how this small act of kindness would change her life forever. The late afternoon lull had settled over Rosie's diner. Most of the lunch crowd had left, leaving behind the scent of fresh coffee and the soft clatter of cutlery. Sarah, a 24-year-old waitress with a ponytail and a tired smile, moved through the booths, wiping down tables with rhythmic ease. She'd worked here for almost 3 years, long enough to memorize regulars' orders and fake a cheerful laugh even when her world was falling apart. Her mom was in the hospital. Again. The rent was overdue, and the extra shifts she picked up never seemed to make a dent in the mountain of bills waiting at home. But none of that mattered when she was on the floor. Here, she was steady, kind, invisible, but in control. Until the door chimed. In walked a man in a tailored charcoal suit, crisp white shirt open at the collar. His face was unreadable behind designer sunglasses, but what caught Sarah's eye was the little boy holding his hand. He couldn't have been older than 7. Thin, pale, dark glasses on his face. Blind. They settled into a booth near the window, sunlight casting soft shadows over the boy's features. Sarah approached with a polite smile. "Welcome to Rosie's. Can I get you anything to start?" The man didn't look up. He was already scrolling through his phone. "Just something simple for him," he said curtly, nodding at the boy. "Chicken soup, bread on the side." Sarah turned to the boy and crouched. "Hi there, I'm Sarah. Do you like soup?" The boy tilted his head slightly, his lips curling into a small smile. "Is it warm?" "Just the right amount." "Then yes, please." As she walked away, Sarah glanced back. The man hadn't said another word to the child. He scrolled, typed, frowned at something on the screen. The boy sat patiently, hands resting on the table, waiting. A few minutes later, Sarah returned with the tray. She placed the bowl in front of the boy and set down a spoon. "Here you go, sweetheart." The man mumbled, "Thanks," without looking up. Sarah started to walk away, then paused. The boy was fumbling, his hand knocking against the bowl's edge, soup already dribbling down the side. His spoon clattered to the floor. His father didn't notice. Sarah turned back. Kneeling beside the boy, she picked up the spoon, replaced it, and gently guided his small hand to the right spot. "There you go," she whispered. "Let's find your way together." For the next few minutes, she stayed beside him, helping him take careful spoonfuls, describing what the bread felt like, what the soup tasted like. Rich, savory, warm. The boy laughed softly at her words. Across the room, a customer had pulled out his phone and started recording. Sarah didn't notice, but someone else did. The man in the suit had looked up. And for the first time, really looked. He removed his sunglasses, revealing dark, tired eyes. He watched as Sarah gently helped his son wipe his mouth, as she knelt in a waitress apron like it was the most natural thing in the world. He blinked, then quietly put his phone away. When the meal was done and the check brought over, Sarah smiled. "He did great," she said. The man reached into his wallet, pulled out a few large bills, and placed them on the table. "Thank you," he said, this time meeting her eyes. Sarah nodded. "It's no trouble. He's a special kid." The man stood, then paused. "We'll be in touch." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry?" But he was already walking out the door, his son's hand gently in his. Sarah stood there, puzzled. She had no idea who he was. But by tomorrow, the entire world would. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the diner 15 minutes early like she always did. She tied her apron, brewed the first pot of coffee, and tried not to think about the stack of hospital bills she'd tucked into her locker the night before. Life was hard, but the routine kept her steady. But something felt off. Her manager, Terry, was already in the kitchen, nervously smoothing his hair and pacing near the door. That was unusual. Terry didn't get nervous, and he definitely didn't arrive before the first order. "You okay?" Sarah asked, tying her ponytail. Terry gave a tight smile. "Just keep your cool, all right? We might be getting some visitors today." "Health inspector again?" she joked, grabbing a tray. "Number not quite." At that moment, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside. The diner's bell jingled, and in walked a group of people in business suits, followed by the man from yesterday, this time without sunglasses. He walked straight to Sarah. "I'm sorry to just drop in," he said, his voice low but steady. "Do you have a moment?" Sarah blinked, confused. "Sure, I guess." He gestured for her to sit in the nearest booth. The others stood nearby, respectfully silent. "I didn't introduce myself properly yesterday," he said. "I'm Nathaniel West." Sarah's face went pale. She'd heard that name before. Nathaniel West, the tech billionaire? He continued, "My son, Lucas, has been blind since birth. He's been through more therapy sessions than I can count. And until yesterday, I hadn't seen him smile at a meal in months." Sarah was speechless. Nathaniel leaned forward. "You treated him like a person, not a problem, not a condition. You knelt beside him when you didn't have to. You fed him without pity. You spoke to him like he mattered." Sarah's voice caught. "He does matter." Nathaniel smiled. "Exactly." He slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a check. Sarah's eyes widened. $10,000, he said, "to help with your mother's medical expenses. I made a few calls." Her hands trembled. "How did you know about my mom?" "I didn't, until someone forwarded me a GoFundMe link tied to your name. You hadn't even shared it publicly." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm not finished," he said softly. "I also run a foundation, the Westkind Initiative. We provide scholarships, job training, and full support to caregivers, single parents, and everyday heroes like you. I want you on our team." Sarah's jaw dropped. "Me? But I'm a waitress. I don't have a degree." "You don't need one," Nathaniel said. "You have what money can't buy: compassion, empathy, grace under pressure." She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "I'd like to sponsor you," he continued. "Education, career mentorship, whatever path you choose, I'll fund it. No strings attached." Sarah blinked. "Why are you doing this?" Nathaniel looked her in the eye. "Because yesterday, for the first time in a long time, my son felt seen. And so did I." Sarah sat in stunned silence, her fingers clutching the envelope like it might disappear if she blinked. The diner, once a haven of routine and quiet resilience, now felt like the center of something vast and unreal. She glanced toward the kitchen, half expecting Terry to barge out and say it was all a prank. But no one moved. Nathaniel waited, giving her space, as though he knew this moment wasn't about the money or even the opportunity. It was about something far deeper: being seen. "I don't know what to say," she finally whispered. "You don't have to say anything," he said gently, "but I hope you'll say yes." Still in disbelief, Sarah nodded slowly. "I don't want to leave this place, not yet. It's more than a job. These people, they're my family." Nathaniel smiled. "Then let's start small. I'll set up a mentorship schedule, twice a week. You keep working here for now. When you're ready to take the next step, I'll be right here." Just then, a soft voice echoed from the doorway. "Miss Sarah?" It was Lucas. He stood with one hand lightly on the shoulder of a woman Sarah hadn't seen before. A speech therapist, perhaps. He held a small white cane in his other hand and wore the biggest smile she'd ever seen. "You remembered my name," Sarah said warmly, kneeling again. Lucas grinned. "Of course. And guess what? I brought something." He pulled out a folded paper and handed it to her. Sarah opened it. It was a crayon drawing, scribbles and swirls in bold colors, but what stood out was the stick figure holding a tray and another smaller one smiling beside it. Above the drawing were words written by someone else, but clearly dictated by Lucas. "Miss Sarah makes the world feel safe." Sarah's breath caught. It was the kind of validation no title, no salary could ever match. Nathaniel watched silently, his eyes glassy now. "He insisted on giving you that himself," he said. "And trust me, Lucas doesn't do that for just anyone." Sarah clutched the paper to her chest. "I think we found your calling," Nathaniel added. Later that day, after Nathaniel and his team had left, Sarah returned to the counter. The regulars were still sipping coffee, the bell still rang with every new customer, and Terry gave her a thumbs up from the kitchen. Life hadn't changed on the surface, but inside, everything was different. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning. Weeks passed, and Sarah's life began to shift in subtle, powerful ways. Twice a week she met with a small, hand-picked team at a quiet corner of Nathaniel's foundation building. She learned about leadership, communication strategies, the psychology of service, and how to build support systems for families with special needs. But more than that, she began to believe in her own worth. The diner remained her anchor. She still showed up each morning with a fresh apron and warm smile, still filled coffee cups, and joked with the regulars. But now, something radiated from her, a sense of purpose, a quiet confidence. People noticed. Customers lingered longer. Even Terry began relying on her not just to take orders, but to settle disputes, train new staff, and manage the trickier parts of the day. One crisp Saturday morning, Nathaniel walked in with Lucas by his side. The boy wore a tiny suit jacket and grinned from ear to ear. "We have something for you," Nathaniel said. Terry emerged from the kitchen with a grin, holding a large cardboard box. "Been hiding this all morning," he said, placing it on the counter. Inside was a plaque. It read, "In honor of Sarah Miller, the heart behind hope," and beneath it a smaller line. "When the world looked away, she leaned in." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as Lucas reached for her hand. "Daddy said you're going to help lots of kids now," he said softly. "Like me." She knelt, pulling him into a hug. "I'm going to try my best." That evening, as the sun painted gold across the windows, the diner was filled with laughter, clinking glasses and celebration. Strangers and friends alike came to thank her, not just for what she had done for Lucas, but for the way she reminded them all what simple kindness could do. Months later, Sarah would go on to lead a national initiative, partnering with Nathaniel's foundation to train staff in hospitals, schools, and public spaces to better understand and care for children with disabilities. But she never forgot the little boy who changed her life with nothing but trust, a smile, and a crayon drawing. And every year, on the same day they first met, she and Lucas would return to that diner, to sit in the corner booth, to share a plate of pancakes, and to remember the moment the world shifted, not with grand speeches or fame, but with a quiet gesture of love from a waitress who simply cared.